If I take you back to our very first session together, I said that the systems run the business and the people run the systems. So now we need to make sure that our systems are clearly documented. This is about mastering our methods. We go back to that example I gave you about McDonald's. When you buy a McDonald's franchise, you actually don't buy the people, you buy a business system. The business system is there to give you a defined performance outcome and a methodology of creating that outcome. Those systems are written down. If they're not written down, they're not systems, they're just ideas. So we have to get good at writing down and documenting our business systems. Now, when I meet a lot of people, they're very busy getting focused on effects. And effects essentially is about doing the work once and getting paid once. In other words, if we run around putting sticking plasters on all the cuts, we have to keep doing that every time a cut happens. We need to move then to a cause focus. And a cause focus is about do the work once and get paid forever. How many times do we have to build a system to stop the cut? Only once. So there's three definitions of leverage, which is about what systems are there to provide leverage. The first one is divide to multiply. I mentioned that in the last session. We divide down our organizational structure into multiple roles to multiply the capability through specialists. That's number one definition. Less is more is number two. So often by focusing on less, the rule of three, we get more done. And then the third definition of leverage is this one. Do the work once and get paid forever. Now, I don't know about you, but I get really excited about doing the work once and getting paid forever. So a leverage focus is absolutely the way to be. As an orange box for a business owner, ensuring the business systems are built is a pretty good focus, wouldn't you say? So let's have a look at it. First of all, when we start thinking about building systems, quite often our mind is drawn to exceptions. Now, if we don't have any systems in place, then mostly 100% of stuff are exceptions. But the rule I want you to focus on here is the 80-20 rule. Systemize the routine and humanize the exception. So 80% of the time, this should work. When we unpack more about management in the subsequent sessions, you'll understand why this makes so much sense. So systemize the routine, 80%, humanize the exception, 20%. That's good enough. That's why managers exist. That's why our managers are usually the best people at the function, because they can backfill the 20%, i.e. exceptions, because it needs a higher level decision. So let's have a think about how we do create these processes. Well, first of all, we need to get really clear on what the processes are. In very simple terms, there are only 4 processes in a business, aren't there? AC/DC, not that rock band that we all know about, but this, AC/DC. Attraction, marketing. Conversion, sales. Delivery, operational elements. Collection, the finance cycle, AC/DC. There may be some subsequent processes sitting under each of those 4 things, but essentially those are the 4 key processes in a business. So what do? It's really a 5-step process. If you think about it, what happens is a lot of people bring their process to your business. That's why we get confusion. That's why we get people saying, I want to deal with the owner, because they know that the owner's going to give them what they want, how they want it. So our process needs to create a consistent way of delivering. The first step then is to get everybody around and get them to map out the process flow. Now let's get really clear on what I mean by that. I think there's a process flow. So process is the way that the thing takes place, a step-by-step guide. In other words, do this, then do this, then do this. We can do that on post-it notes. Normally what that leads to, by the way, is chaos. If you map out a process flow in terms of post-it notes, you're going to end up with a lot of post-it notes on your wall. Now that's great because it starts to create the basis of conversation. People start to look at those post-it notes once they've been rearranged into the order that the process flows in and start to ask questions about why do we do that? Or I didn't know we did that. Or that doesn't make sense. Or that's why customers start to get really angry with us, or whatever it is. You can ask better questions as a result of the visibility of that process flow. The next step is, once you've got a coherent process flow that walks through the methodology of undertaking that task, the next question is to ask which would be the most sensible role to allocate this to. So if you think about it, you can just very simply move those post-it notes around from role to role. So we get a process flow allocated by roles in the organisation. That starts to show where responsibilities transfer. It also starts to show where people's orange boxes are in the process flow. Once we've done that, then we can start thinking about, well, what are the systems that need to back up that process? For example, if you have a sales process, there may be an introductory call that needs to be made to tee up that sales process. The system that would back that up may be a checklist of questions that we need to ask the person that we're speaking to. It may be a script to ensure that we're delivering the most important aspects of that positioning piece every single time we do the process. So working out the systems that would need to back up each step in the process, that will allow us to train people in those systems so that they understand how the step of the process works. The final piece is to ask, what are the KPIs that would measure the effectiveness of this process to show that it's working as we want it to? All of that can actually go on one piece of paper to give a very clear diagram in terms of process flow, who does each step, what the systems are that back it up, and what the KPIs are that measure it. Obviously, the systems themselves are separate documents that sit behind the process flow, but the overall process flow will provide a lot of clarity and basis for common discussion in the business. The really important thing here is that once we've created that process flow, it becomes the common way of doing things. What tends to happen is that people start to find workarounds. Now, if everybody finds a different workaround to a process, then we end up with multiple processes again. The important thing here is about realizing that the process flow creates the common basis for doing something, whereby when something more effective is found, we circle it back round into that process flow to improve the system in its entirety. And that will allow us to retain that how we do what we do in a common and homogeneous way. So your task is to go and define which systems need to be documented in your business. Remember, when something isn't working as we want it to, the first place to look is always to the system. When we have the systems clearly documented in terms of process flow and backup systems to perform each task in the process, then we can start looking to training people better so that we achieve a more consistent result. The focus on this will take some time. This isn't a quick process, but it's a worthwhile process. Remember, your job as the business owner in the orange box is to make sure that the systems operate the business as you want it to. So to create that scalability of how you do what you do. That is your orange box. And remember to get obsessed with the word leverage. You only have to build your systems once, do the work once, and get paid forever.